Getting all of your ice fishing gear onto the ice can be a bit of a chore. But that's why adding modifications to your sled, like a rod holder, can absolutely revolutionize your ice fishing experience. Hey, I'm Josh with the Fishing Duo, and I'm going to show you 5 of the best rod holder options for your ice fishing sled that will not only make your life easier, but they will definitely protect your ice fishing rods from some unfortunate accidents. You have 2 main choices when deciding which kind of rod holder to get for your ice fishing sled. You can either buy one or you can make one. Obviously, the easiest route is to buy one specifically designed for an ice fishing sled. The problem is, very few of those exist, but I did manage to track down some. The first one I found is the Eagle Claw Jet Sled rod holder. Now, it's specifically designed for use on a jet sled, but it does say here on the back that it'll work on most other sleds. Now, this one can mount to a gear track, so if you have that on your sled, it's great because that means you can adjust the rod holder up and down the length of that track. But if you don't have a gear track, it does mount directly to the lip of any sled. This actually is a pretty good rod holder that comes with everything you need to make it work, and the rods fit in it quite nice and stay pretty secure. It also has quite a bit of vertical adjustment so you can keep your rods from dragging through the snow or slush if you don't have a Smitty sled setup like this. This rod holder does have a couple drawbacks though. First, it's kind of clunky. There's a lot of slop in it, which may or may not be a problem for you, but it's something to be aware of. It was also a bit of a pain to install. You'll need to track down a 3/8 inch deep socket in order to reach up under the lip and get it tightened down securely. The second issue I have with this rod holder is that it only has space to hold 2 rods. Now, some of you might be thinking that 2 rods should be plenty, but for a lot of us, 2 rods is the bare minimum because collecting an ice fishing rod for every type of fish or jigging style is kind of a sickness that we treat with, well, more rods. With that said, if you choose the Eagle Claw rod holder, you're probably going to end up buying 2 sets in order to transport the number of rods you want out onto the ice, especially if you live in a region where you can fish multiple lines at once, which means you're going to be spending in excess of $35 plus shipping in order to get the rod storage you need. But overall, it is an excellent option that is worth considering. The next ice rod holder that I've seen a lot of ice anglers use is one like this, a standard wall mount rod holder that you can get on Amazon for $20 or $25. These are very durable rod holders that adapt pretty easily to most standard ice fishing sleds. And best of all, it has 3 spots for your rods, so you don't need to decide which rod stays at home or gets tossed carelessly into your sled as an afterthought. But here's what I don't like about using this style rod holder. It's huge. Putting this rod holder on your sled as is won't be very practical, because mounting it on the outside will leave it dragging through the ice or slush. And if you end up putting it on the inside, it just takes up too much room. If you have a Smitty sled like this one, then it's not such an issue because it's raised off of the ice. However, without a Smitty sled setup, you'll need to modify the rod holder before you mount it. You can easily do that by cutting it in half with a hacksaw like this. It still holds my ice rod securely and it won't drag through the snow now. But it does look a little sloppy if your cuts aren't perfect. On top of that, you'll also want to cut the mounting bolts so they don't stick out into your sled. After spending all that time searching for rod holders for an ice fishing sled, those were the only 2 I could find, let alone the only 2 worth trying. And I just didn't want to settle for that, and I don't think you should either. And that's why I spent the last few months creating my very own rod holder specifically designed for an ice fishing sled. And now I've made it so you can get your very own rod holder as well. But for the sake of not sounding too spammy, I feel like I need to prove to you why this might be the very best rod holder you can buy for your ice fishing sled. I put in a lot of effort into designing a rod holder that is based entirely on real-world ice fishing experience, and I think it paid off because this combines the best features of the first 2 rod holders I showed you while avoiding most of the drawbacks. First off, it's super durable and very compact. And the way it mounts allows you to mount it high enough so that it won't drag your rods through the slush or snow while you're pulling it across the ice. And I don't think there's a rod holder easier to mount than this one. Installing it right here on this sled took less than 2 minutes. Plus, if I don't say so myself, it's a pretty nice looking rod holder too. I also want to point out a subtle but very important feature of this rod holder, and that's these offset reel seat notches. That's what allows me to fit 3 rods into a very compact space. You can remove a rod without snagging the other. It also means that unlike the other 2 rod holders I showed you, you could fit multiple holders on a small sled like this. On top of all that, I'm also including an outdoor-proof rubber strap so that you can secure your rods in place if you plan to pull your sled behind a snowmobile. That way you can be sure you're not going to lose a rod on your way out to your fishing hole. We made sure this rod holder could work for just about any ice angler on almost any sled. So if you think it's worth trying out, check it out at fishingduostore.com. We are a husband and wife team 3D printing these rod holders right from our own home in the US. So if you want to support a small local business, then this is the rod holder for you. And I should also mention, it costs about the same as the other options I showed you. So it's kind of a win-win. I'll drop a link in the description below where you can find it, and I'd love to hear what you think about it. Those are the best rod holders you can buy for your ice fishing sled. But now let's talk about the DIY options. If you've seen my previous videos on making my Smitty sled and the custom built rod holder, then you know what's possible with a little bit of effort and creativity. A lot of you really liked this rod holder and asked how to make it. So if you're still interested in going the DIY route, you can check out that video right up there. This rod holder is made from PVC pipes and aluminum flat bar. Altogether, this rod holder cost about $20 to make. It's pretty sturdy and fairly compact, but the major drawback is the time and tools needed to make it. I spent almost 2 hours on this one, and you'll need a vise, propane torch, and power tools just to get the job done. If you happen to be handy with some basic woodworking tools, this is a great option. You can make a rod holder like this easily out of some scrap wood. This one only took me about 15 minutes to make. Now, it's not as weatherproof and it doesn't have all the features you might want, but it's a perfectly reasonable option that will hold your rods securely in place, and it's far better than just tossing them in your sled or piling them in a bucket. Well, there you have it. 5 ice fishing sled rod holders to choose from. 3 you could buy and 2 you could make. Whichever one you choose, I hope it inspired you to improve your ice fishing setup with the simple addition of a rod holder. And please don't forget to check out our rod holder at fishingduostore.com. And while you're there, check out our ice fishing bucket bracket. It's designed to give you more space in your sled by getting your 5-gallon bucket on the outside. With either product, we're confident it'll improve your ice fishing experience. As always, please consider subscribing to our channel if you think we deserved it. Also, check out our blog, fishingduo.com, for more helpful content and tutorials on ice fishing. Take care, and we'll see you on the ice.